Gulf South Outdoors is entering its 11th season, and over the past 10 years, well, as you can imagine, we've come home with some big fish stories. Not necessarily days that had the best fishing, or the biggest fish, or the best hunting. Those stories over time seem to blend together. But on certain days outdoors, something really out of the ordinary happens that creates a story that's remembered and told over and over for years. The retelling of these stories usually starts with, "Remember that time?" In celebration of 10 years of fish stories on Gulf South Outdoors, we've selected some of the most memorable to bring you. Today's story is quite simply known as a big fish tale, and is quite literally the biggest fish story ever told on our show.
Well, I saw him come up and bite. I knew he was a nice fish. I knew it wasn't a little white marlin or a small blue marlin, but I never thought that it would be as big as it was.
It was a hot, muggy July day in 2006. The crew of Vixen got an early start and headed out on dead calm seas in search of billfish.
300 pounds easy.
I'm telling you, it was tough. It was some 95 degrees out there, not a breath of wind.
But with what was going to happen on this trip, a cool breeze would have been welcomed.
And that fish was determined not to come to the boat.
At a minimum, we got a caught fish.
Cameras on?
Cameras are on.
This day of fishing started great because not long after the baits were in the water,
He's a nice fish.
the first blue marlin of the day was hooked up, and Brittany Willem was in the fighting chair doing battle with what appeared to be a big fish.
I don't want the next one.
But you're not getting the next one. You're doing good, baby. Just keep it on him. Don't let him get any slack. You're doing great. You're almost there, babe. He's a nice fish.
After a long back and forth struggle,
Nice fish.
Brittany's blue marlin was brought alongside Vixen and declared a caught fish.
Pushing 300 pounds easy.
The crew estimated its weight to be around 300 pounds. Big fish. With the baits back in the water, another line went off immediately.
He's burning it up. He ain't burning it up now. Get on him.
And Todd Rossetti was doing battle with another big blue.
You me get out of it, Steven?
No. I don't have to. You might run.
As it came alongside Vixen, it looked to be about the same size as Brittany's.
Good fish. Big fish.
Two big blue marlin in two passes, still in the relative cool of the morning. This was already a great fish story. The fact that this was the first billfish for Todd and Brittany made it an even better story. But what was going to happen next on board Vixen would change the way the story of this day would be told for years to come.
We've been very fortunate on that trip, Barry. We'd already hooked up two blue marlin, which is extraordinary for any trip in the Gulf. And then the third fish came up in the spread. I was lucky enough to happen to be looking out when it came through the spread and saw the fish lit up, and I knew right away it was a good sized fish.
I knew that was gonna happen.
After making her way through the spread and attacking practically every bait we had out, she finally got hooked up on the center rigger, and then the fight was on.
Good fish. It's coming to you. You probably got a bow in the line.
Taking line now.
The fish began to greyhound away from us, and our mate Stephen Coolgis was yelling at Eric to back down because the fish was in the process of trying to spool us.
Go get him.
He's taking line.
He's steadily dumping it.
About the time that Eric got backing down good, the fish decided it didn't like going that direction and turned around and went the other direction, at which time Stephen began yelling at Eric to put the boat in forward, that the fish was coming back on us, and we were afraid we'd get slack and lose the fish.
Reel, go, Eric, go. He's coming at us, go forward.
While this big blue marlin was running straight at Vixen, Frank kept the slack out of the line and didn't lose the fish. But something did happen when this fish made this abrupt turn that would set the course of events for the rest of this day.
Fought the fish for the next hour and a half. She got the fish up a couple times, and Stephen was getting ready to wire it when the fish made another run.
Reel, go, Eric, go!
But what had happened when this fish made that sudden turn?
At the time, we weren't certain, but about halfway into the fight, at about an hour and a half, we were in some 700 feet of water, and the fish began going straight down. I thought at first the fish was sounding, but later we figured out that what had happened, it had become tail wrapped, and unfortunately it died. And finally it came to rest on the bottom. We quit taking line at that point, and we figured out what had happened. It's difficult to get a dead fish of that size. We're talking 600 to 700 pounds up off the bottom, even with an 80 wide with 80-pound test. We were fishing with 50 wides with 50-pound test, and it was extraordinarily difficult. That was the first time in which I thought, we're not going to get this fish up. We might as well go ahead and cut it off. With the drag all the way to the stops and holding the spool with both of my thumbs as hard as I could, Eric would bump the boat ahead until I couldn't hold it any longer. Then we'd back down and reel back down on the fish. We did that for the next hour and a half until finally the fish basically popped to the surface.
Somebody get a camera and take a bunch of pictures.
This fish was the biggest Frank had ever caught, but it was a mixed blessing.
And I was exhilarated. I got out of the chair. I was so tired I could hardly stand up. My legs were rubbery. But it was a magnificent fish, and it was just an incredible moment, tinged with the regret of the fish dying.
To this day, this big blue marlin remains a Gulf South Outdoors record and still is a personal record for Frank. So this was, once again, quite literally, a big fishtail. We'll be bringing you more Gulf South Outdoors 10 years of fish stories in the coming weeks. But rest assured, none this big.